Prior to my NDE, I was a real estate agent. I was very focused on work and career. I was happy, I would say, but looking back now, I see that my life was missing something. It was still lonely and a little bit empty. And my NDE was on August 22nd, 2009.
Before my near-death experience in 2009, I lived a life that, on the surface, looked successful. I worked as a real estate agent. My days were filled with appointments, showings, paperwork, and negotiations. I was driven, focused, and accomplished in my career. And I thought I was happy. But looking back, I see how much I had mistaken busyness for fulfillment. I wasn't unhappy exactly, but there was this subtle emptiness that followed me everywhere. A loneliness I didn't always acknowledge, even to myself. I had built a life that looked great from the outside, but internally, something essential was missing: connection, purpose, soul. Then came August 22nd, 2009. I was 34 years old. I woke up that morning in unimaginable pain. My body was on fire with fever, 106 degrees Fahrenheit, 41 degrees Celsius. Every inch of me ached, and no one could figure out what was wrong. A family member rushed me to the hospital, and they immediately started running tests, trying to stabilize me. In the CT scan room, I felt myself beginning to separate, drifting, like a balloon slowly rising out of reach. The pain was unbearable, but I was also beginning to feel detached, as though I was slipping from the edges of this world. The sensations became more surreal with each passing minute. I remember being placed in a waiting area in the emergency room. That's when everything truly started. I began convulsing. My body shook uncontrollably, and I could feel the veins in my head bulging under the intense pressure. I was freezing and burning all at once. And I thought to myself, I don't know how much more I can take. Detachment and discovery, the moment of death. With my eyes closed, I reached the breaking point. The pain was too much. My body felt like it was collapsing in on itself. And in a flash, I disconnected. Not just mentally or emotionally, but spiritually, physically. I had no awareness of the medical staff, the machines, or even the hospital itself. The world around me vanished. What came next was surreal. I began scanning my own body from the inside. It was as if I was watching a high-definition documentary about my own anatomy. I saw blood moving through veins, organs functioning, even the microscopic details of cells. It was utterly factual, without emotion. And then it hit me, this is what dying feels like. In the next instant, I popped out of my body. I was no longer lying on that hospital gurney, I was floating above it. I could see everything and everyone in perfect clarity. But I wasn't part of it anymore. I looked at my lifeless body and knew, my soul had separated. Despite the gravity of that moment, I wasn't afraid. I felt peaceful. Detached, yes, but also incredibly aware. It was as real, maybe even more real, than anything I had ever known. I slowly began to rise and float backward, watching the scene below shrink in size. I saw what I now know were souls, energy forms, tiny balls of light buzzing around. Each one connected by a thin, iridescent strand. It reminded me of a spider's web catching the sun. That was my first real understanding of oneness. We are all connected in ways we can't even begin to imagine. The tunnel and the light, entering heaven. As I floated backward, I entered a vast, dark void. It wasn't frightening. It felt like outer space, a black, infinite expanse, but peaceful. Then the tunnel appeared. It was pitch black at first, but exhilarating. I wasn't drifting anymore, I was speeding forward, pulled by some invisible force. And then I burst out of the tunnel and into the brightest, most beautiful white light. It wasn't just light, it was a presence, a force, a living love. I felt immediately enveloped, as though this light had been waiting just for me. The energy of this light poured over me. It was love, pure, unconditional, all-encompassing love. It didn't care about my past, my flaws, or the mistakes I'd made. It saw me, and it loved me completely. I felt valued, accepted, and whole for the first time in my life. That was just the beginning. I began to feel something deeper, a profound peace. A healing unlike anything I had ever experienced. I saw places within my energetic self that were wounded or broken. Those were being filled in and repaired with love. My soul was being restored. And then I realized something even more profound. I wasn't just in the light. I was part of the light. I had never been separate from it. The illusion of separateness was simply that, an illusion. My sense of self was being rewritten in divine terms. I belonged here. Resistance and return, the voice that sent me back. As I was absorbing the joy and beauty of the light, I began to sense others. A group of souls gathered around me, like a friendly crowd. I didn't feel threatened, just curious. But before I could fully understand who they were or why they were there, something else happened. I heard a voice. Not out loud, but deep within me. It said, "You need to go back." I was devastated. "No," I pleaded. "Please, don't send me back." I wanted to stay. Everything in me cried out to remain in that love, in that perfect peace. But the voice came again. Loving, yet firm. "You need to go back." It wasn't a choice. It was decided. In the blink of an eye, I was pulled back, swept away from the light, back through the tunnel, and slammed into my body through the top of my head. I felt the pain instantly. Everything returned, sharp, jarring, physical. I was back. And then, nothing. Hours passed before I had any memory. When I finally awoke in the pre-op area, I was receiving last rites. It was late at night, and I remember thinking, this doesn't make sense. I had just been in the presence of that beautiful light, and now this? The machines, the people, the noises, it all felt foreign. I had forgotten what this world was like. I couldn't speak yet, but I wanted to tell them, I'm going to be okay. I was set back for a reason. Recovery and realization, the journey back to the body. When morning came, the doctors told me I had experienced septic shock. A kidney stone had blocked my ureter, backing toxins into my bloodstream. My entire blood supply had become infected. My fever had dropped dangerously to 94 degrees Fahrenheit, 34 degrees Celsius, and the next 24 hours would be critical. They didn't think I would make it. But I knew I would. I'd been told to return. I knew this wasn't the end. Yet my physical body was still a battlefield. I felt like I was floating in and out, partially here, partially not. I was uncomfortable with the machines, the artificial lighting, the constant beeping. What grounded me were the people, the souls around me. Nature became my lifeline. Outside my hospital window, I could see trees swaying gently. I stared at them for hours. They reminded me of the white light. They felt alive in the same way. Nature wasn't man-made, it felt pure. Divine. Over the next few months, I faced surgeries and exhaustion. My adrenal system was shot. I was on heavy pain medication, trying to recover not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. I tried to share my story with 2 people I trusted, and both rejected it. One even laughed. Doubt crept in. I began to wonder, was it the meds? Did I imagine it all? But when I finally weaned off the painkillers, everything became clearer. More vivid. More real than ever. I had died. I had crossed over. And I had returned with something sacred. Awakening the empath, a new kind of sensitivity. The morning after my NDE, something shifted. I began to notice that I could feel people in a way I never had before. Nurses, doctors, visitors, they would walk into the room, and I would know what they were thinking. I could feel their emotions as if they were my own. I wasn't reading their body language or guessing, I just knew. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But it kept happening. People would stop mid-conversation and ask, "How did you know that?" I didn't have an answer. It was overwhelming. It wasn't just their words, I was absorbing their energy, their grief, their joy, their stress. The world suddenly felt loud. Not in sound, but in energy. Every outing, every interaction, felt like I was being hit by waves. I stopped going out unless I had to. I felt safe only at home, surrounded by silence. Even then, I struggled to process the immense emotional information constantly flowing into me. I was 34 and completely changed. I no longer fit into the life I had before. My old relationships began to unravel. Friends didn't know who I was anymore, and to be honest, neither did I. I tried to reach out, but the gap between my experience and their reality was too wide. Some distanced themselves, others faded away. It was lonely, but I understood they couldn't follow me into what I had seen. I knew I had to make a change. I couldn't survive in the high-pressure world of real estate. The competitiveness, the ambition, the noise, it all felt toxic now. I didn't want to sell houses anymore. I wanted to heal. I didn't know how yet, but something was pulling me toward a new path. Rediscovering purpose, the healing power of light. That pull eventually led me to hospice work. I wasn't ready yet to become a healer, but I needed to be close to the sacred energy I had experienced. Hospice gave me that. It was quiet, sacred, reverent. The dying were surrounded by the same white light I had bathed in. One Sunday morning, I received a call. A man in our care had no visitors, no family, no friends. He was unconscious and dying. Could I come sit with him? When I entered the room, I felt it instantly, that sacred presence. The light. The love. Though the man lay unresponsive, the space around him was alive. I almost didn't want to approach, it felt like I'd be intruding on something holy. So I stepped back and just witnessed. He wasn't alone. Even if no one physical had come, the love surrounding him was immense. His soul was being embraced. Whatever loneliness he had endured in life, it was melting away in those final moments. He was completely known and completely loved. That moment changed me. It reaffirmed everything I had experienced. Death wasn't the end, it was a return. A homecoming. That man may have passed alone by earthly standards, but in truth, he was surrounded by more love than he had likely ever felt before. Those moments with hospice patients reminded me of the light. Many had fears, of leaving their bodies, of judgment, of the unknown. But when the final moments arrived, peace always came. Like clockwork, 24 hours before passing, they began to let go. And the light welcomed them in. Becoming the light, a life transformed. As I continued to heal, both physically and emotionally, I noticed something else. I could move energy. At first, it scared me. I didn't know what I was doing, or why it was happening. But something inside me knew it wasn't accidental. The light that had healed me was still with me, and now it was working through me. I began practicing quietly. A therapist once told me, "When you speak, I can feel that white light coming out of you. Someday, you're going to fill an entire room with it." That felt impossible, even intimidating. But I couldn't shake it. I started visualizing light in a corner of my room. Then I tried filling the whole space. Bit by bit, it grew. Eventually, I began studying with energy healers I trusted, people who emphasized ethics, responsibility, and compassion. Reiki was my entry point. I learned to use my nervous system as a map, to feel where others were stuck, to help move the pain out, and replace it with love. That same love that had filled me in heaven. It took years. I was cautious, diligent. But soon I saw transformation happening, not just in me, but in the people I helped. They said it felt different from anything else they had tried. Some had done years of therapy, but this energy work reached deeper. It was lasting. At first, I refused to charge. I offered everything on a donation basis.